Netanyahu. He condemned the rocket attacks by Hamas and other terrorist groups, including against Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. He conveyed his unwavering support for Israel's security and for Israel's legitimate right to defend itself and its people while protecting civilians. He also conveyed the United States' encouragement of a pathway toward restoring a sustainable calm. He shared his conviction that Jerusalem, a city of such importance to people of faith from around the world, must be a place of peace. He updated the Prime Minister on the United States diplomatic engagement with regional countries, including Egypt, Jordan, and Qatar, as well as with Palestinian officials. The two leaders agreed to maintain the close consultation between their teams, which has included consistent engagement by their respective foreign ministers, defense ministers, chiefs of defense, and national security advisors, and to stay in touch personally in the days ahead.
Thank you for that. When you think about what's going on, and I'm going to bring Rome in on this, and welcome to Rome. But one of the things that we have to think about is if you're living at home and then a group of people who used to live in this area come in and try to take you out of your home forcibly and start bombing your community, and you start fighting back against them, but then the same government that's supposed to protect you starts calling you a terrorist for trying to protect yourself, then you can't say anything else but that's fascism. And that's fascism in its purest form. And so for people who suddenly are thinking, oh, well, Israel has a right to protect itself, it's like, well, yeah, if they have an occupying force trying to go after them, but it's not an occupying force. Israel is the occupying force. And so I want to bring Rome into this. Rome, how you doing today? We wanted to get your thoughts on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, from what your understanding is, and how do you feel about it?
Man, how I personally feel about it, I feel like Jews haven't learned a damn thing from the shit that they went through with the Nazis and whatnot. And just like the shit that happened to the Nazis, all the shit come back full circle, No matter how many generations have passed, it will come back around and it will hunt your offspring. Mm-hmm. But they just what do we expect as far as America? What do we expect? You know what I'm saying? We gave birth to Nazism, and then we spread them all across the world. We spread their teachings all across this land, all across the world, and this is what happens, and we've been funding this since before we was here. So, of course, somebody like Joe Biden, out of all, is not going to give a fuck about Arabs. He don't give a fuck about blacks. He don't give a fuck about anybody who's not lining his pockets with greenbacks. So he been like that when he was balding back in the days. He was he was Israel's bitch, and a lot of people, they don't like when black people speak up against stuff like this because they automatically assume that we are biased against the Jewish community, and but that's not the whole truth. That's some old school prejudice and type shit, blacks and Jews type shit. But you can call out motherfuckers if they doing bad. Like, I wouldn't want black people killing each other over land or money or anything like that. So I'm pretty sure Jews shouldn't want the same thing for Jews and Arabs.
Yeah. Thank you to Jeremiah Williamson. He gave us a donation, so we thank you for that. Nick, can
I chime in with one thing? Because we just watched that clip with Joe Biden, and this is not new, and this is something that people should have saw coming. I reported on my show that and actually liberals reported this as a positive when it happened, and it sounds like a positive, but it was one of those stories that you read the details, you're like, what? The story was shortly when Joe Biden took office was the United States rejoined the UN Human Rights Council. And the reason why they were joining, everyone was like, "Oh, see, this is a big deal because Trump pulled out and he didn't like the council, and they celebrated it as a win." But then, if you look at the statement that Tony Blinken made, Tony Blinken said we had a lot of concerns, and one of the reasons why we wanted to rejoin the UN Human Rights Council was to help protect Israel. What I mean by that, so you had the UN Human Rights Council, you had the UN. Almost every year, they announce a probe into look into the Israel-Palestine conflict, and then you have the United States that do everything they can, and they throw the political power into blocking that. So Joe Biden, in the very start of his administration, announced he was going to do that. So these are the kind of things that I don't understand how people can't put two and two together. When I say that Joe Biden is not the lesser of two evil, when I say he is a embodiment of white supremacy the same way Donald Trump is, this is why I'm referring to, because when you look at Zionism and what that really means, it's deeply rooted in hatred of Arab people. Because look at the people that they are funding. You have videos that have been shared and all over Twitter. We have Israeli extremists, and you can call them extremists, but there's a very large segment of the Israeli population who was cheering the bombardment of Gaza. And literally, they was watching Palestinians being stripped out of their home, and they were celebrating. I want to see if I can find this tweet, but there was a viral tweet where there was literally like an encampment, it was like a picnic of Israelis they were just watching Palestine being bombed and the building being torn apart, and it was a celebration for them. So there is a level of extremism that's very similar to like the Taliban, as far extremists as you can possibly get, like that as far as Israeli government and part of the Israeli forces that is celebrated. You know what I mean? And Gal Gaddafi, for example, I mean, she served in the Israeli forces, and she never can say Palestine. Like, she still apologized for the occupation that Israel's responsible for, and the crusade they had in Lebanon as well. So these people are unhinged imperialists, and they are not people that we should take seriously on the Overton window. We should call them out as the extremists that they are. So I was happy. I'll pass it to RJ or Jack take from there. Now I'll introduce another point here very soon, but I just want to introduce that fact that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the Biden administration, they always hinted and they always been extremely pro-apartheid state. So when I was flagging that a very long time ago, I don't know why people was pretending I was being unreasonable, because this is one of the many things I said. This is the last thing I'll share. I tweeted this December 28, 2020. So before they even got office, I said Gaza is currently being bombed and there is a complete media blackout on it. To make matters worse, we have Tony Blinken as Joe Biden's Secretary of State, who is a diehard apartheid state supporter. There was no lesser evil vote for the Palestinian people. So you have people puffing their chest and pretending that they stand with the Palestinian people, but these same people advocated for voting for Nancy Pelosi, a hardcore Zionist, for speaker, and then they voted for Joe Biden for president. So it's easy to pretend you stand for Palestine for likes on Twitter, but when it actually comes to actually weighing the only political power you have, it seems that Palestine is not a litmus test for you. So exactly. I just want to call out that double standard. But who wants to take it from me? I'll pass it to JB. You pass it.
Okay. Yeah, actually, it's a good point that you made about the double standard, because if you look at this, and I'm going to share this right now, if you can see, it actually shows a map of the world, and it shows that where the countries that have recognized the state of Palestine, and then you see the ones that countries have not recognized the state of Palestine. And if you look, that it's all Western countries, and especially those in the global north, in the Western countries that have recognized only Israel as a state, and they have not recognized Palestine as a state, versus the rest of the world has recognized Palestine as a state. So it just shows that really it's about imperialism and white supremacy that is pushing this narrative. And one of the things that I actually want to direct our attention to is actually what Andrew Yang has actually been saying. A lot of people have actually been going after people like Andrew Yang, and even Rihanna is coming in under fire on this, because they're doing the both sides of this issue when really there is no both sides. I'd like to get RJ, what's your comment on it first?
No, just to add on to what you said too, Rihanna posted on Twitter in 2014 that she was in support of the Palestinians, And then this
Mhm.
new tweet in 2021 kind of makes her look suspect because she did try to play both sides of the issue. But I did do a pre-recorded video that's going to be released Friday. I talked to Jason Kishnev on Twitter. Most of you probably know who he is. We kind of really talk about militarism, and he's a staunch anti-imperialist. So we're going to be we talked about what happened in Bolivia. We talked about what happened in Venezuela, as well as the Israeli conflict. And I believe it's important too to understand all these different factions and how they play. Yes, I stand with the Palestinian people, but also too, we did discuss this thing called progressive Zionists, which is weird. So there's some Jewish people who do believe in having a state where Jewish people can live, but they don't necessarily agree with the treatment of the Palestinian people, which is very confusing because if you do call yourself a progressive Zionist, wouldn't you be one of the first ones to tell the Israeli government to say, hey, this abuse that's happening to the Palestinian people is wrong? How come they're not the ones standing up for it? So I do believe that it's a very complicated issue, but once again, I do stand with the Palestinian people. So I do wish those type of factions would do a lot better in terms of really fighting oppression across the board, even if they do believe what's happening is wrong. So that's kind of what's going to happen in our video. But in the end, I do believe what's happening right now is pretty much disgraceful. So that's my thoughts.
RJ, let me just follow up with another question. Would you say that it's more of they are trying to speak up, but it's just there are more louder Zionist voices in the room?
In general, I would kind of have to agree with you, actually. I mean, it's kind of like the dialect between progressive Zionists versus social Dems. Social Dems, they don't really, they're not really socialists. They're pretty much capitalists, but they do believe in social programs. So it's kind of like the Squad and AOC. They say they're for these socialist policies, but when they get in the actual capitalist machine, they find it difficult and pretty inconvenient for themselves to actually go about this type of changes. So it's kind of the same way with progressive Zionists, where they understand the treatment that's happening with the Palestinian individuals, but they themselves find it difficult for some reason not to actually fight for their rights in government or in practice, not necessarily just saying you're for them.
What has Javon Bowman been saying about this? I haven't followed this, but he's been suspect on this issue. And I've been flagging this because, once again, I am very happy because this issue hit. I was talking to my friends about this, almost like a switch just hit, where it almost like police brutality in America, where George Floyd happened, and it was like a switch would hit, where people were like, all right, enough is enough. Now, the Palestinian people have been oppressed by Israel for a very, very long time, for decades now. But now people was like, okay, now is enough is enough. This is why we saw Andrew Yang being dragged. We seeing protests all over Chicago, New York, and great news. There's protests that literally been formed right now that's going to launch this Saturday throughout American cities. I'm looking at Kansas City. I'm ready to be out there as well. So it's like another level will just hit now, and it's very encouraging. And I think it's tied to the police state in America, when people now see and able to connect their own struggles together with, all right, we live under this fascist police state, and now we see what's going on in Israel-Palestine, and now it clicks for people for some reason. I mean, I can't explain necessarily why, because this is something I've been talking about for a while, but I think it's a combination of seeing the state violence over here, what's going on in Colombia, and then now we're seeing with Israel-Palestine, all the coups that have been going on. The fact that the internet can connect everyone internationally changed the game, and in a way that the establishment really didn't see coming. And now you got the Democratic Party that have been caught flat-footed. And now even a lot of progressives are caught flat-footed, because the argument is that Jamar Bowman, you got a large Jewish constituency. New York got a large Jewish constituency. So that's why you can't stand against Israel. And that's why Andrew Yang took the path of least resistance. And my response to that is bullshit. And we shouldn't accept that. So, and we were discussing this with Sabrina on her channel with when we have 4 black leftists, where there are a lot of white leftists and more center left, where they say they like Bernie Sanders, but they don't even represent his ideals and what he stood for. So now a lot of ideas that Bernie Sanders advocate for is popular, but Bernie Sanders made his name in the 80s and 90s standing up for ideas that wasn't popular. So now you have people that are like, oh, I can't stand for this issue because they're Jews. We got a Jewish constituency. Nonsense. Because also there's like Katie Halper, and a lot of people are flagging this issue on Twitter as well, how you got a lot of people in the Jewish community that don't stand with the apartheid state of Israel. And even the suggestion of that is actually kind of anti-Semitic. And that's an anti-Semitic trope to assume that if you're a Jewish citizen, you can have loyalty to Israel. That's not true. It's not true at all. So I think you should stand for a right, and I think people are starting to acknowledge that. And Joe Biden and his administration is caught flat-footed. There's a story in the Hill. I'm not going to dive into it. I just saw it surfing now, and it said Joe Biden is taking pressure from all sides on the Israel-Palestine issue. I mean, actually, neoliberals actually find themselves in a very hard position because the Republicans are deeply dishonest, and they will always attack the Democrat Party no matter what they do, right? So even though Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are hardcore Zionists, they were like, oh, they're still weak on Palestine. What? It doesn't make sense. So they will say that no matter what. But now you got emerging left, and you even have Democratic politicians. I can find a name here soon that's speaking up like, yo, this is unacceptable that Joe Biden is doing this. So they're in a very tough position because this issue really evolved really quickly, and it's very fascinating to see. And I'm looking forward to covering the protests that go on this weekend and hopefully get involved with that. I'll pass it to Rome. You got anything you want to add to your Rome? Throw you in here?
Yeah, I want to speak about the protesting. I appreciate and I love to see people on the ground, but I hate how they actually do it. Like we are stuck in this cycle of protesting without demands. Like then we protest in the wrong places. We protest in our neighborhoods. We should be taking this to the people with powers. We got to go to our city council meetings, buildings, our capitals, all this. We have to go and really make our voices heard with demands. And if you want anything to stop, it starts here. This is where they get all their funding for this defense. So it stops and starts here. So this is where we got to actually, if y'all want to come out and protest, make it make sense. Make it make sense, because are you out here fighting for these people, or are you out here for a photo shoot? Because I know a lot of you are actors. A lot of you are just, social media actors, man. Y'all will get out there, but it's just to take a picture. What are your demands? So if you're gonna get out there and protest, you're gonna get out there and strike, riot, whatever it is, to get your point across. Make sure you have your demands on the table. That way, if something get fucked up, or y'all like, you know what, this protest turns into a riot and then it turns into a standoff or whatever the fuck it turns into, make sure that we know what the fuck we want, because it's gonna get dirty. It's gonna get dirty, man. And when you fighting for something that you want, that'd be the Palestinian rights, black rights, gay rights, any rights.
Yeah,
your hands are gonna get dirty. Your hands are gonna get dirty. So make sure you know what the fuck you are fighting for. Don't get out there and say, hey, I'm with the people. Oh yeah, here's a flag. I'm gonna take a picture. And we're all socialists and commies out here, and we're Americans, and we standing up for these people. How? How you standing up? How you standing up? By taking a picture and posting it on your fucking Instagram? That don't do nothing for them people. Nothing. So get out there and threaten the fuck out of these people who write this type of shit, who protect these types of people, man. You can't just go out there and show and go. Don't go out there and show and go, man. That's the problem. We've been doing this since the 60s and 70s. This is why black people still stuck in the fucking 70s right now. Because we get out there and protest without demands. You get out there and say, hey, we want rights. Okay, well, how you gonna go about it? Oh, I thought if I was just to protest, y'all was gonna give it to me. No, bitch, you gotta take it. You gotta take it. So just like I said, it stops and starts here. Don't get out there and protest looking looking for a feel good moment or for 1,000 something likes on your fucking Instagram, because that shit ain't gonna do nothing to stop them fucking bombs at all.
Quite well said, Rome. I want to bring Jackie into this. As Rome was actually saying about how we actually have to put our feet to the ground and actually fight for this and actually have a strategy with this. I'd like to give your thoughts on the whole BDS movement. Andrew Yang actually said in an article that he likened it to Nazism. And of course, we know that is utterly preposterous in what he said. I'd just like to get your thoughts on the whole BDS movement and also comment on what Rome has said so far.
Okay, so first of all, Andrew Yang needs to sit the hell down somewhere, because he has showed his ass on this entire thing. I feel like he's showing that he was never progressive He was just like, he had one issue that was mildly progressive, and that was the UBI. And I say mildly progressive because the UBI like is a progressive policy, but not the way he structured it.
Right.
So I feel like he was never really progressive. He's like Elizabeth Warren, but
Asian.
far more see-through. Everybody can see
Look.
through it like in real time, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's not actually progressive. He just plays one on TV and not well. So he needs to just go ahead and have a seat. Because how are you going to make comments supporting Israel bombing an entire apartment complex with innocent civilians in it, and then turn around and try to have a talk at like a Muslim community center and wonder why nobody shows up? Like, how do you have the nerve to do that? So he needs to have several seats. As far as what Rome said, I agree. We need to be more about doing things, putting things physically in action, rather than just talking about it, because anybody can tweet. Anybody can make a social media post. Like, just like thing that bothers me all the time. There are so many, like, okay, not to be racist, but there are a lot of white people with Black Lives Matter in their profiles who are racist as fuck. Just because you put a flag or 3 letters in your bio doesn't mean you're an actual supporter. Doesn't mean you're boots on the ground, willing to stand in front of me when somebody is trying to take my life. So we need to see more action and less talk. And not just about the Palestinian situation, not just about Black Lives Matter, but about everything. That's what a general strike is about. We need to have our demands, just like Rome said. All of this is connected. It's all connected.
That's
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 why I
what
was
makes me
saying
feel like these
earlier.
people aren't serious because where the fuck were y'all at? Like, bro, we just bombed Syria. No protest, no nothing. Because it didn't get enough media attention. Enough people didn't actually care enough. We've been dehumanizing these people for generations now. Nobody actually gave a fuck. But as soon as people figure like, oh, they're getting 20,000 likes on this post and 20,000, 50,000 likes on this post. Oh, well, I got something with them. I don't trust you motherfuckers. I really don't. Because if y'all was really about that shit, y'all would have been out here. Y'all would have been out here just as much as they was out here on January 6th. We should have been out here. So I don't trust y'all niggas when y'all say we're gonna go and fight for somebody else. When, bro, y'all don't even know how the fuck how the fuck do we fund this shit? Y'all don't even know who funded, who write it, where to go. You don't even know. I don't trust you. I don't trust you. You wasn't standing up for black rights. You know what I'm saying? You let them spray paint Black Lives Matter in the middle of the street and said, fuck us. And after all that shit, after George Floyd and all that shit, they was still putting necks on our fucking necks. Y'all wasn't even there. So I don't trust you. I don't trust you. So until y'all motherfuckers actually get shit done here and stop the shit here, then I'll probably fucking trust y'all going out and protesting for somebody else in other countries that I know that y'all don't give a fuck about. I know that y'all don't even know foreign policy. I know you don't, because we don't teach you this. The media don't teach you this. You don't learn this in school. So I know you don't give a fuck.
It's even worse. Like when they do talk about foreign policy, they arguing like an imperialist. Like you got liberals right now, like I stand I stand with Israel, and they will repeat CIA talking points in order to justify topping Libya and Syria. So it's like whenever they do talk about foreign policy, they're like, oh, I think Nicolas Maduro, he's a tyrant. I think we should do something about him. It's like you guys are colonizers and you guys are not our allies. You guys are not our friends. And this is exactly why that we gotta oppose you guys, because these are the same people that, just like Ron pointed out, I love that point because I like to hammer that. They like to put Black Lives Matter in their profile and they like to say they stand with Black lives. But how many people are talking about the fact that Joe Biden deported more Haitian immigrants than Donald Trump in 100 days than Donald Trump did his entire first term? So how can you be supportive of Joe Biden and say you believe in Black Lives Matter? If you supportive of Joe Biden, take Black Lives Matter out of your profile pic because he destroyed Black immigrants during his very short time as president. So you guys all talk.
But Nick, he's Uncle Joe, right? Of course he cares about Black people, you know?
And then these people, and my friend Finney, another strong Fred Hampton leftist, she point out amazingly on my show how you got a lot of these fake white allies. She does mutual aid events every week. And she said these people are nowhere to be found. So it's funny when Rome does his events, when Finney does his event, I had Anthony Clark, and he was talking about his events. These white allies are nowhere to be seen. They're not showing their solidarity with their wallets. They got fat wallets. They donated to Lincoln Project. Yep. They donated to Kamala Harris. They donate to AOC, who donates to corporate candidates, instead of actually donating to mutual aid programs to the Black community. So I'm sorry, but this is why you need to hear from Black pastors, because we need to call these people out, because these people, they swear they are allies, but they don't show it. And it's uncomfortable for them to hear it.
Yeah. Actually, this is a great segue into another topic that we
Yang. I got one more thing to say.
Okay.
Apparently, I want to give you guys thoughts on this as well, because I was talking shit. I'm gonna be glad to be wrong. I really hope I'm gonna be wrong, because I was like, yo, New York is fucked because you have Andrew Yang, you have Eric Adams, and Yang is getting dragged, and he deserved to get dragged. But I want people to understand that Eric Adams is as bad as you can possibly get as a candidate. So, Yang does this thing where like, I stand with Israel, but I'm sympathetic because Eric Adams, there's no apologies. He's like, no, straight Israel, bro. I don't care about Palestine. And he still believes to this day in stop and frisk. To this day, he's a former cop. So whether Yang wins or whether Eric Adams wins, I'm like, man, New York is fucked. There's only one candidate that can save people, and that Dianne Morales. And apparently, I heard that she's like 12%, 13% in the polls. And I think they have a debate today, right? I think it's either today or tomorrow. So, and whisper of the dream, you never know. But I hope Dianne Morales win that race, because if it's not Dianne, and I don't want people, because there's a lot of Democrats that are attacking Yang, but then you ask them who they support Eric Adams. That was the K-Hop. K-Hop hates Andrew Yang, but they support Eric Adams because they love cops. So I want people to put it in perspective. It's the Democratic Party that is awful, and there's no victory for New York unless we have someone like Dianne who's want to defund the new NYPD. She took that courageous stance, and now she's in third place. Scott Stringer, he got taken down by a sex scandal. You had the working party. They endorsed Warren over Bernie because they actually spineless. So and they didn't endorse Dianne Morales. They endorsed Stringer, and Stringer had like he had some mild progressive policies, but he got taken down by a sex scandal because he got caught groping and proposing sex to one of his staffers. Took him down, and now they're like, oh, I guess we have to endorse Dianne Morales. So I've been surprised by this, because to be honest, I called out like, y'all don't think she stands a chance because media blacking her out. But there was a survey done, and I'll pass it. I'll pass it back to JB. But there was a survey done where the majority of New York voters say they want a progressive mayor, despite what you hear on Morning Joe, despite what you hear from MSNBC, because they was running the exact opposite narrative. Because they was attacking Yang, and they were pretending Yang was a progressive, but he's not. But the framing they had, it was like, all right, New York cannot have a progressive candidate. This is why we got to support Eric Adams, a black guy who still supports stop and frisk. They didn't say that because they know how unpopular that is, by the way. They know what they're doing. So that's the situation. So we got hope that Dianne, because she's for defunding police, right? So that's an issue I'm passionate about. And she took that courageous stand in New York. She's standing for Palestinians in New York. So I know we don't put that much stock in electoral politics, but as someone who cares about the issues, I think that would be a giant win for those issues. If someone like that can win New York supporting those issues that the neoliberal establishment says is unwinnable. I'll pass it for Derek. I went pretty long. What are your thoughts, JB?
Well, actually, that's good that you brought up Dianne Morales, because she's somebody that you don't hear as much about, and so it's good to get her name out there, especially for people who live in New York City. But one of the topics that we also want to talk about, our states are stripping unemployment benefits in places like Georgia. Yeah. Actually, in fact, you can start off with that, RJ. But in states like Georgia and I think it's North Carolina, they want to strip unemployment benefits, particularly because they want people to go back to work for starvation wages. So RJ, if you can unpack that for us, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I put out a tweet a couple days ago signaling that all these unemployment benefits that were under evil fascist dictator Fat Donnie, there was like $600, and now under Uncle Joe, they're $200. Apparently now fiscal conservatism is back in the U.S., so that's great. But I'm being facetious, by the way, when I say that's great. I'm just joking. But
Yeah, I
the
got you.
point that's basically driving me crazy is that all these different states now feel like it's a perfect idea to now get rid of the unemployment benefits overall in general, just to try to force you to go back to a job for lower wages. And what's really concerning too is that Joe Biden, the president, said that if you, as a average worker, deny suitable work to take the unemployment benefits, you will get stripped of them. So that's, to me, is what's very concerning and really ridiculous. Like, they're literally forcing you to work at a job with less pay and less benefits, all to just abuse you for your own labor. So that's just my thoughts.
Okay. Your thoughts, Jackie?
My thoughts
Yes,
on
please.
states stripping you of the right to. Well, okay, so first of all, I have to start from the beginning. The reason why a lot of people are choosing to stay on unemployment is not just because perhaps with the benefits they're making more than they did at their shitty job. It's mainly because the pandemic is not over.
Right.
We're still in a pandemic.
Exactly.
So let's not act like, oh, we solved it, it's over, everybody go back to work. That's exactly what the government is doing, and people are not willing to do that because they know that the pandemic is still live. It's still happening. And I love how it's just like we've moved on. The Democrats are just like, okay, here's a vaccine. Everybody get over it. Just go back to work. And I feel like this is the beginning. These are like the steps laying the groundwork for a general strike. Because when you see all of these pieces of paper attacked to businesses saying, if you really wanted to open up, maybe start paying more, I feel like that's the beginning of a general strike. People realizing like it's finally we're able to go against the propaganda that we've been told for so long that oh, you have to protect the owners, no, the owners are protecting themselves. Reaganomics does not work. Okay, trickle down, nothing trickles down. The only thing that trickles down is poverty. Okay, if you really want if you want a healthy system, you inject the cash into the bottom. That's something that they obviously never learned because here we are during a pandemic, and instead of them giving us the money so that we can pay our bills like rent, like buying things, so we can inject instead of injecting that cash directly to the people who are then going to use it to spin up the economy. What do? They give us literal pennies and then turn around and give billions, not just to corporations, but also to other nations, like, for example, Israel.
Yeah, Rome, the mutual aid man. I want to direct this attention to you as well because a lot of the activist work that you do involves mutual aid for people who are in these different situations. We all know that unemployment insurance. I want to emphasize that word. Doesn't even then it's still not completely adequate enough for people to survive on. And no doubt there are people who come to you for assistance, who still need some sort of survival, whether it be food, clothing, or things like that. So what are your thoughts on the states stripping unemployment benefits away from people who so desperately need it?
I mean, just like how I point out to people, just like how I'm doing, like, I talk to a handful of people and we put in resources. You can do this on the ground, man. You can do this for your neighborhood. It don't take a whole fucking village to feed one. As far as them stripping rights away, they are literally asking us, like, what the fuck do you want to do? Like, they flinching at us, they knock the stick off your shoulder, whatever neighborhood you grew up in, they asking you for a fight. They're asking you to fight. They're like pushing you to do it. And I think, like Jackie said, this is the groundwork for a general strike But the problem is we still have different generations to go through. But I think
Yeah.
if we can get at least the millennials and Generation Z to make this trendy, like I said this the other day, we got to make quitting your job trendy because people don't follow suit unless it's trendy nowadays. But if
Hmm.
we can get this to trend on TikTok, the trend, and have all these people quitting their Walmart jobs, Target jobs, Wendy's, McDonald's, and whatever,
Hmm.
and make sure that we can have insurance for excuse me for each other within these communities. So we build up. Let's say if us as Fred Hampton Leftists went out to our community and we went out to fundraise, use a little shut up. Use a little you know what I'm saying? Use a platform that we have to fundraise for that community and you know what I'm saying, show them like look, this how we go and this how we keep going. You know, you know, buy seeds. You know what I'm saying? Flip the dirt over in your backyard. Flip the grass over in your backyard. Start gardens and shit like that because it's gonna get down to that shit. We gotta not only educate them on, them getting their rights stripped away with unemployment benefits. We got to educate them on who owned this land and who owned most of the farming land. Bill Gates.
Hmm.
He's trying to get us the GMOs and shit like that. So we're not
Hmm.
going to have, we're not going to own the means to our own foods. So I think it's time,
Hmm.
we got to. I wouldn't say put fear in these people. I say we got to put fire in these people and let them know our backs are already against the wall. They're pushing us. They
Hmm.
already, kicked us in the balls and clitoris a couple of times, and it's time for us to fight back.
Okay. And Nick, I want to pass this on to you. I know, speaking of fire, you have a lot of great points on this. You typically are very well versed on a lot of these different subjects about, the states stripping unemployment benefits. I know you live in a red state, and a lot of these red states they're usually the ones who push for these types of things. So, what are your thoughts as a leftist living in a red state?
So remember when Donald Trump?
Your mic is muted. Oh, we can't hear you.
Nope, we could not hear you at all.
No,
Nope.
still can't.
Still
Still
can't
can't.
hear you.
I still can't.
Okay, JB, why don't you tell us your thoughts while he gets his mic together?
Of course.
You see you right back in.
So the thing is that people forget that actual name of it is unemployment insurance. It's called insurance for a particular reason. The reason why is because it's something that you paid into, and it's something that you get back just in case you lose your job. So therefore, to say it is a handout or something like that is completely inaccurate. If you say have, flooding in your home and you have flood insurance and then they pay you for the contents of your home and for repairs, was that a handout? Absolutely not. So therefore, to make it sound like it's some handout, like we're just willy-nilly freely giving away money, is asinine and stupid. So, and also you got to think, if I'm making what's the equivalent of $15 an hour on unemployment insurance already in, how is that the government actually helping people? So therefore, to force people to do this is stupid. And in fact, it was Joe Biden that just came out a couple of days ago who said something like this. He said that, oh, well, you guys have to take the job, even if it pays significantly less, basically, in other words. And so that is completely antithetical to trying to help take care of Americans, because you're basically saying, oh, well, screw you. We don't care.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you're kind of low. Okay, I can hear you moving the mic.
Okay.
There you go.
I think audio may be working out. Maybe.
Yes.
You're good. We can hear you now.
Okay. So the point I was gonna make is, remember when people got really outraged by Trump and the right wing when they pretty much proposing the same thing that Joe Biden is doing now? Because you have Fox News commentator, you had Donald Trump that pretty much was telling people that they have to die for capitalism. And now you have the Biden administration that is essentially telling workers to do the same thing. That's what they're telling people to do: die for capitalism, die for this failed system who can't take care of their people during the middle of a pandemic. So the capitalist lie for a very long time was that wages is pretty much dictated by demand for the work. So the reason why you work in a low wage job is because even if you leave and if you get fired, you can be easily replaced. And now you have these businesses where you have CEOs who make about 350 times more than the workers. So there's plenty of revenue to go around when you got the upper class suits. But these same businesses pretend they can't pay their workers a living wage. And then they say there's no demand for them to have a living wage. Meanwhile, these same people was called an essential worker. They had to go to work, and the no one casualty. You got pussy ass police who pretend they got the most dangerous job. Oh, we gotta be police, even though you guys not even top 10 in terms of the most dangerous job. You know who got killed the most during the pandemic? A line cook, a person who can't even make a living wage.
I used to be a line cook, so I can attest to that.
And then people wonder why I get upset at politicians. I'll make my point earlier today where I don't understand why people get upset over customer service workers, but they don't hold politicians accountable. Like I'm the exact opposite. I'm very nice to customer service workers, very forgiving. They mess my order up. It's okay, man. It's not a big deal. I mean, we vibing. But when politicians mess up, you got bootlickers and stands who make 1,000 excuses for them. But I won't allow them to placate me to make me like apologize for them. I don't understand why people do that. Like I'm very nice to the average person who work in these conditions who are more likely to get sick. These people who can't even get proper hazard pay. And now you got McDonald's that say we're gonna increase our wages to $13 an hour. That's still not a living wage. $15 an hour, not even a living wage. I made that amount of money before. I don't have kids. And you guys expect people can raise a family on this kind of money? Oh, Joe Biden will drop poverty, even though the poverty rate we set $22,000 a year for a single mom with 2 kids. And if you're a socialist and you're repeating this nonsense, you're a fool. Like, if you're an anti-capitalist, you should not even remotely be repeating these talking points. But meanwhile, the American left, Bernie Sanders was like, oh, Joe Biden dropped child poverty. Bro, you're a moron for repeating this bullshit Western capitalist propaganda. Because according to them, as long as you're not literally dying of starvation and you got a house over your head, you're not in poverty. Not about the quality of your life, and not whether you can afford healthcare, not whether you can actually afford to take care of yourself, like go to the gym, eat healthy, have time off. Like, these are the kind of things that actually increase the quality of life. And these are a lot of things that Americans don't have. And the reason why life expectancy is not as high. But I'll pass it to RJ. What's your thoughts, man?
Okay, I forgot to add a few points. So what I do like right now is that this new strategy that's been developed, and whether it's on the left or whether it's independents, I see a lot of comments on Twitter saying, well, if the corporations are now seeing that we're tired of their bullshit, especially since 2008 recession, when all the corporations said, look, you'll have a job, you have less pay, but you'll still keep your benefits, so hang with us. But they've seen through COVID-19, especially with the pandemic in 2020, starting in late 2019, that all the billionaires, all the big corporations, they got all the tax breaks, they took our tax dollars, and their net worth doubled in a year. So working class people are saying, okay, I'll start playing hardball too, because just like the billionaires did, they kicked us out of the front of the line to take our money. So what we need to do is do the same thing back to them, but to the system. So what I like and what I've been seeing on Twitter is people are saying, okay, well, if a corporation is let a bidding war happen. Basically, right now it's a bidding war. So like I see it's $15.50, $16, $17. It's great. Hold the line. It's the same thing with Wall Street bets. Hold the line. That's what you got to do if you're a worker. Band together. Make sure that everyone gets a job at least better than $15 an hour. And I've seen some jobs offer 17, 18. So even McDonald's franchises, 600 of them are increasing their wages because they know workers aren't going to go for this bullshit. So I think it's great what's going on right now. And also, too, in Bessemer, Alabama, they're talking about redoing another union drive because it got caught that Amazon was using illegal, dirty tactics. So that's something I'm going to be focusing on the next couple of weeks and next couple of months. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
One more thing I want to add, and I'll give Jackie the last say on this topic. The way you should frame this, and the proper way to frame this, is that Joe Biden is waging a class war. Mm-hmm. That's what he's doing. He's forcing the American people to work for starvation wages because that's what his donors want him to do. So that's how you frame the issue. But I'll pass it to Jackie, and then we can move on to the next topic.
Okay, so my first pushback is he's not trying to start a class war because that's what his donors want. It's because he genuinely doesn't give a shit about anybody that he's not related to. Okay? And who knows how well he cares about even them.
Mhm.
Why do people believe anything he says just in general? Because he's a pathological liar. I mean, he literally had to drop out of a presidential race in the 80s because of that, or the 90s, sorry. And when he said he would increase the minimum wage to $15, first of all, $15 is not enough. The minimum wage in California is coming up on $15, still not enough. I can't live on my own for $15 an hour. I have to have multiple roommates at 15. I make more than $15 an hour, still multiple roommates. Not enough to live on. Secondly, why do people think that he would do anything to increase the minimum wage when the minimum wage increase stopped under the Obama Biden administration? That's when it hit a dead wall. It went up under the Republican before him, just slightly, but it still went up some, and then it stopped with him.
Mhm.
So why do you assume that he's going to come in and increase it? That's literally the first thing he dropped when it came to his stimulus. He was like, "Oh, I can't get the stimulus through with the $15." Why? You literally have control of the House and the Senate. So why? Parliamentarian. That's what it was. We can't do that. Like they just made shit up basically to get that to be able to drop that because he has no intention of raising the minimum wage. It doesn't behoove him, and he genuinely doesn't give a shit. So that's what I wanted to say. And also, tip your service workers at least 20%. None of this $5 bullshit unless you only bought like $20 worth of stuff.
And if you're like me and have a barber and get this haircut nice and trimmed and get the skin fade going on, you need to tip your barber 30%. That's what I'll be doing. I make sure my barber's straight because if you get your barber good, if there's an open spot, he's gonna say, "Hey, bro, come in." So you gotta treat your workers right. So I agree with Jackie on that.
Yeah, think of tipping 20%. Think of tipping properly as a light version of mutual aid, because obviously those people are not getting paid well enough. So hook them up. That's the first steps to mutual aid. Okay, JB.
I actually like that, Jackie. That was actually a really good tip. I appreciate that. I'm going to start using that, and I think you should tweet that out because that is something that people need to take into account. Because when it comes to our service workers, a lot of times they go through a lot. And as seeing, I used to work in the back of the house in restaurants. I was in the food industry, and I seen what servers went through. And so people in the service industry definitely need support. They do not get a living wage here in the United States, and they are, dependent on tips, which I think is stupid. They should be paid a living wage just like anybody else. And part of the reason why is due to, the for-profit motive and capitalism, which is going to be our next subject. If anybody has any other thoughts before we move on. Alrighty. So the question is, why oppose capitalism? And, as we see around the world, especially when it comes to the Israeli occupation, what's the word I want to use? The opposing of BDS, stripping unemployment benefits just to keep people, at work, for starvation wages. We can all center this back around capitalism. So this is going to be kind of a bit of a capitalist rant. And as far as rants go, I want to first start off with Nick, because I know you have a lot to say about capitalism. And so just a really quick, because we may get people who have never watched any of our programming. This may be the first time they see the first episode. Why do you oppose capitalism?
Because we the first half of the left this year, right? So there's a wise man that once said, there's a man in our community called a capitalist. Sometimes he's black, sometimes he's white, but that man has to be driven out. Anyone who comes into the community to make profit off the people by exploiting them can be defined as a capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
Fred Hampton, 1969.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote in great detail, and I talk about this all the time. Our culture and our background is fighting as anti-capitalist. Our revolutionary roots is rooted in anti-capitalist ideology, and then that been whitewashed and that been attacked, and we've been propagandized by black capitalism. Now that been reversed, and that trend been reversed. But what's been the consequences of this? I mean, our wealth has tanked. We've been a victim and preyed on by Wall Street, by the military industrial complex, by the prison industrial complex, by the healthcare industry. I mean, literally, the entire capitalist system preys on us. And then, not even that, we are like targeted by civil asset forfeiture. So I don't know how anyone can be a Black American and have a positive view of capitalism. Because if you are a pro-capitalist, let me ask you this question: Name one time in history had capitalism ever existed without slavery. Don't worry, I'll wait. Because we have a vice president right now who was a very a strong advocate of prison slave labor. And that's why we have a system of a new Jim Crow that Joe Biden is still implementing to this day. He ran on decriminalizing drugs. He haven't done that because, once again, he's in service of the prison industrial complex. They still need their workers to fight fires. They still need people to be disenfranchised. So Democrats always bring up voting rights this. But this system disenfranchised black men. Joe Biden is responsible for millions of black men losing their voting rights.
Yeah.
So Republicans are bad too, but Democrats, that's what they're responsible for. And this is the byproduct of capitalism. So this is why you had the Democrat Party. You had Nancy Pelosi said, we are a capitalist party. So when they say they are a capitalist party, what does that mean? That means they're an imperialist party. That's why they support all the coup and regime changes throughout the country, throughout the world. That's why they support Israel occupation of Palestine. That's why they're still funding the genocide in Yemen. That's why they're still trying to push a new Cold War in Russia. That's why they're trying to provoke war and provoke tension against China. This is what a capitalist does. They can't help themselves. They can't help themselves. So in order to be a leftist, you got to start at anti-capitalist. You're not a leftist. There are people like, oh, Democrats are leftist. No, you're not a leftist until you're anti-capitalist. That's where it starts. If you want to call yourself center leftist, you want to call yourself a progressive, I guess those things are, you can call yourself a capitalist, but you can't start at leftist and then be sympathetic capitalism, because I understand as a black man that capitalism is complicit with my subjugation, and it always has been. That's when the prison industrial complex started, because under capitalism you always need a lower class where you can disenfranchise and you can exploit through wages, because capitalism does not work otherwise. And it's ahistorical to believe otherwise. That's why I asked that question, and the one they ever can answer: when have they ever existed without slavery? Because actually, there is a report that a lot of people don't know. There is more slavery right now than there was during the Atlantic slave trade. There's slavery right now that we are exploiting in Africa, in the Congo. Child slavery right now. Your iPhone, it's very fun to use, isn't it? You got a lot of good apps on your iPhone. We got a very cool PlayStation. You know where we get them minerals from? Child slave labor. And you want to call yourself a capitalist, and you think you're moral. But I think I'm gonna pass it to Rome. What are your thoughts on capitalism, Rome?
I mean, like I've been saying, these capitalists, they need you dumb enough to go and fight the wars. They need you dumb enough to go and work these fucking jobs, and they need you poor enough to go work these fucking jobs. They need you down in order for them to step on you. And that's what capitalism is. It's like, somebody just said, I don't think the problem is capitalism, it's corruption. Corruption is the base of capitalism. Like, let me just ask you, how can you get capitalism without slavery? There is no way. There is no way. So all of it is corruption. All of it is slavery in the way. It's either mental slavery or it's you got prison slavery. They will enslave anything they can to make a profit off of you, hold you down, and then throw you away once they're you. And by the time you're done working for them 40-something years, these same capitalists, they cut into your Social Security that you paid into. They cut into all your benefits. They cut into every fucking thing. So now you just thrown out, laid off,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, you're nothing at the end of the day to these capitalists, and that's all it is. And as far as you know, communism, communism cannot be corrupted from the inside because it is the people. Whatever the people wants, you know what I'm saying? The people gets this. We move in between each other. I mean, there is going to be evil people, but the evil people aren't going to be at the top. You know what I'm saying? We're going to have an actual voice to stop these people before they get a voice or get some type of influence or something like, some shit like that. So, yeah.
All right.
Fuck capitalism. Fuck capitalism.
Let me say one more
I
thing.
know,
Then,
I
and
might,
we
I know,
get
I know you might have a couple of dollars in your pocket, and you might feel like, well, it ain't all bad. Yeah, for you, but yeah, I'm pretty sure you done stepped on the backs of a few motherfuckers to get to where you at, and you lied your way to your top, whatever that top be. Because with your capitalists, you never stop. A lot of you are fucking psychopaths. You have mental illnesses that nobody ever calls out on. Nobody ever calls these people, these rich people, what they are. They are mental. They need to be mental patients. They have problems.
Mm-hmm.
They have real problems. And if you was to sit here with $10 billion in your bank account, and you have information that there are homeless people around you, people starving to death. We have people starving to death in America. People starving to death in America. If you have this information and you have the resources to stop it, you say, well, that's some mental illness type shit. You don't see people as humans. You have a mental illness and you need some fucking help. You don't need that money. That money should be stripped away from you before you hurt somebody. Before you hurt a lot of people, like they're doing right now.
Mm-hmm. RJ, so what are your thoughts? We wanted to go to you next about capitalism and why is it so damaging to our society today?
Well, capitalism itself, the only innovations it has is to uphold their own power, especially for those billionaire elites, and also for really the United States. But it doesn't really help the average American, average citizen. It sucks wealth away from us and gives it to them. And I gave Jackie a clip. I want her to play that before I give any additional comments. And this clip, I believe, was in 2018. The actual source of the video is from Richard R.J. Eskow. He has a show. And this clip is of this young gay college teenager asking Nancy Pelosi in 2018 about what could Democrats do to really change capitalism if possible, and how you as a politician make lives better for your constituents and for people really across the United States. So I want to play this clip first, and then I'll give more comments.
On NYU's campus and what I've seen in polls all over, in CNN even, a Harvard University poll last May showed that people between the ages of 18 and 29, not just Democrats, not just leftists, 51% of people between 18 and 29 no longer support the system of capitalism. And that's not me asking you to make a radical statement about capitalism, but I'm just telling you that my experience is that the younger generation is moving left on economic issues. And I've been so excited to see how Democrats have moved left on social issues. As a gay man, I've been very proud to see you fighting for our rights, and for many Democratic leaders fighting for our rights. But I wonder if there's anywhere you feel that the Democrats could move farther left to a more populist message, the way the alt-right has sort of captured this populist strain on the right wing. If you think we could make a more stark contrast to right-wing economics.
Well, I thank you for your question, but I have to say we're capitalist, and that's just the way it is. However, we do think that capitalism is not necessarily meeting the needs with the income inequality that we have in our country. And let me just tell you this.
All right. So, very interesting answer. Kind of blew up on social media.
Okay, you can cut it off now, Jackie. Okay, so so me being in 28. What'd you say, Ron?
She hold his bitch ass like, you're fighting for my rights. This nigga, what? Okay.
That guy was kissing a little bit too much ass for my liking.
That's fine, but I'm putting this in context because me being in 2018, this is what really started pissing me off about really the Democratic establishment and what really opened my eyes to how damaging capitalism is. All these different types of reforms. And in the same video, minutes later, Nancy Pelosi actually outlines all the bad things about capitalism, starting with the Standard Oil Company, their business practices as well. She broke down the entire business model, but her herself refusing to actually break down this model and reform it so it's better for the people and not just the corporations. That is what pissed me off. And I believe the inability for really the Democrats and Republicans in general to have policy that's for average working people and not just to support the capitalistic state is something that I disagree with. And I believe in general, capitalism itself is failing because the younger generations are realizing, hey, this economic system is pretty fucked up. You know, we have winners and losers. The wealth disparities, whether you're a man or a woman, or if you're a person of color versus you being white, is so large and so unequal that it's really unfair. And so I think that's something that you're seeing. That's why the Democratic Party is ousting young people who are leftists and keeping those old farts who are in there who are capitalists as long as until they die, because they don't want us to get into power, because they know if we do, it's over for them. And so that's why they're very happy with having Republicans and being friends with them, making sure they're coming over to the Democratic Party, as well as basically being happy that young, crazy Republicans are coming into the fold. And so that's why, to me, in general, that I believe capitalism isn't necessarily the economic method we should continue to go with. So I think we should abolish it and get rid of it and start something different.
Let me add something to that, because I think what you're saying is important, because you're talking about how the younger generation are more anti-capitalist. And this is why I've been speaking up more against Bernie Sanders in the squad, because I've been making the point that they actually doing a great favor for the Democratic Party, because there was stories that came out on Reuters and there was polls before that showed that the Democratic Party was bleeding support from the millennial base. And I think that's related to capitalism. When you see Nancy Pelosi answer on that, when you see Nancy Pelosi answer when she was asked about Black Lives Matter. So the Democratic Party is completely out of touch with what young people want. So there was a memo that was floated by the Democratic Party during the Black Lives Matter protest where they said we can't support Black Lives Matter because it's too radical. And she said we need to support all lives matter too. So what happened was you had the Black community realizing that this party is not for us. Young people realizing this party is not for us. Anti-capitalists realizing this is a hardcore capitalist party. But then you have AOC, Bernie, and the squad who market themselves as socialists. Now they're speaking positively about the Democratic Party. And now you're seeing Joe Biden have record amount of support with young people now. So it's unfortunate that we had to deal with this this situation, but we need to start calling out progressive propaganda as well. Because they were quick to call out Joe Biden being horrible on Israel and in human rights abuses, but then in another interview they would say Joe Biden has seen expectations. So when LC and Ilhan made their great statements, I think they had pretty good statements on Israel Palestine. My point I made to them was you guys keep making these statements, but then Joe Biden just don't listen to you guys. So they made a statement on Israel Palestine, and Joe Biden like, okay, we're gonna do this anyway. They made a statement on Joe Biden building the border wall, and they're like, we're gonna do that anyway. There was a story in the Hill that came out how they still patching up pieces of the border wall. It's like Joe Biden administration, they master this arc where they do something horrible, and then because the press don't cover it, they say, "Oh, we're gonna walk it back. We're gonna walk it back," and then they continue it. They're the same thing with the pipeline deal. They said we're gonna cancel the pipeline. I think it was the Keystone pipeline. Then a few weeks later they're like, "All right, we're gonna continue it anyway. No coverage on this." And this is something that the Biden administration has been constantly doing. They've been getting away with, and people who are anti-capitalist being driven to the Democratic Party because they are covering for it. I think that's pretty relevant. But I'll pass it back to JB.
I was actually gonna
go ahead, RJ.
Yeah, I was actually gonna add. Sorry, that's why I don't usually butt in like that. But I think that's a great point that Nick made, because young people, especially like me, I mean, we're increasingly anti-capitalist, and we're really one of the most left-wing generations we've seen in a while. And what's really shocking is you have, I'm really nervous about those who are even younger than I am, because they look up to AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, all these different squad progressive members as for guidance. And when you see them chilling for Uncle Joe and basically getting along with them, That's why Joe Biden has a 60% approval rating among those between the ages of 18 to 29, which is very scary because here's the scenario what happened in 2016. So after Trump went in office in 2016, the Gen Z and millennial generation during that time, they were flipping to Republicans, right? They were pissed off. And so now with the squad coming in, not really showing that much, of course they have a policy difference, but they're not actually fighting for policies like they should be. All you're doing is you're making the Democratic Party look better by proxy when you're not doing anything. So that's why the approval rating among young people is so large. I mean, Joe Biden's out there bragging about it. Of course, he's not doing shit to help young people. And so that's what's scaring me. So the sheepdogging effect is already coming full circle. And so that's what I'm worried about because they're still anti-capitalist, they're still pro-union, they're still pro-worker. But what worries me is that over time, if the happy-go-lucky feelings about Joe Biden and the Democrats continue, they could be co-opted just like the progressives in the House got co-opted. So that's my biggest worry.
So we're moving on to Jackie. What are your thoughts about this whole subject?
About capitalism?
Yes, about why are you against capitalism?
Because there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. And capitalism, like RJ and I interviewed Professor Wolf a couple weeks ago, and what he said makes a lot of sense. Capitalism is not sustainable. It needs to be saved, and what happens is he said, what was it, every 4 to 7 years, RJ? I think it's every 4 to 7 years it needs to be saved because there's a crash. And we can call it different things and we can blame different reasons. But the fact is, capitalism doesn't work. That's why every 4 to 7 years, there's a crash. And we were talking about like the impact that COVID is going to have. And he was like, even if COVID hadn't happened, we still would have had a crash this year because it's time. And so that's a system that can't sustain itself. How is capitalism okay when it's a system where if people are starving to death, nobody gives a shit because they don't make enough money. If people have an illness and there is a solution to stop them from suffering from that illness, to prevent them from dying from that illness, but they can't get that solution because there's a paywall between ending their suffering and saving their life, that's not a good system. The system of capitalism is the one that's destroying our oceans and it's destroying our entire habitat. And make no mistake, the earth will spin on. It's humans that will be extinct and no longer able to live on the earth. And we are doing this to ourselves. We are speeding up the process because of capitalism. Because it costs money to come up with solutions that could prevent this. So we're like, well, fuck it. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing because it's more profitable because of capitalism. Capitalism is anti-human. There is no such thing as ethical consumption under capitalism. You cannot be a leftist and be pro-capitalism. Those are my thoughts.
Student lunch debt. The fact that student lunch debt exists alone is a damning fact for capitalism. That was exactly what Jackie pointed. People are allowed to be left behind. We allow kids to go in debt because they're not profit and feeding them. That's all to be said. Back to JB.
Hey, real quick, I want to respond to Chris, who is talking on YouTube.
I was going to respond to.
Okay. First of all, you keep saying it's not capitalism; it is corruption. No, it is capitalism by design. Like Professor Wolf said, capitalism fails within a decade. You can't go longer than a decade before capitalism needing cash injections to be saved. Okay, he's an economist. I'm an idiot on the internet, but the economist said that.
Can I say people who want to get socialism or communism through electoral politics, you're not going to get it. The best way to get any socialist anything socialist done, it's through the people on the ground. You have to start on the ground. We cannot ask politicians for our socialism. Just like Nancy Pelosi just told you. We are fucking capitalists. She spoke for all of them because it's one big club. So if you want, you know, communism to have a good face, you have to start in your neighborhood, man. You have to fucking reach out to your neighbors, no matter how right wing they are. And a lot of people say, "Well, I don't have the anxiety. I don't have the anxiety for this." Well, don't even join a movement like this. You know what I'm saying? Don't even fucking try to put your neck out there like this because people are gonna be on your head about this type of shit, and you're gonna need to know. You know what I'm saying? What the hell you are talking about? You're gonna, man. You gotta be out there, man. Like, man, you gotta talk to your people. You gotta, you know, all them fucking $20 y'all that we spend on weed and liquor and all that shit. Yo, we can put that shit away, sack that shit up together. Now we got a community garden. You know what I'm saying? Shit like that. Feed each other, clothe the homeless in your neighborhood. Do that type of shit. And that type of shit, it adds up. It stacks up. So now you got a face in your community. Who is these people? What do they do? Who? Oh, we're just a bunch of fucking commies. Oh, commie. What the hell? We was getting helped by commies? Yes, because that's what we do. We help people. You know, now you got more people trying to join your fucking organization or whatever the fuck you got going on the ground, but y'all trying to ask Bernie Sanders for communism, you out of your fucking mind. You trying to ask AOC for socialism, you out of your fucking mind, because all they're gonna do is do their job and deliver you to the Democratic Party with promises of socialist programs or safety nets. But when have that ever worked? When has that ever happened? Like, come on, we've been going through this merry-go-round. We've been on this merry-go-round for generations now, and I'm sick. I'm sick, and I'll do up just as much as I possibly can, you know. And y'all are not gonna get this shit through Bernie. Yes, he was a good man and this and that. Whatever the fuck your feeling is, he was bad on white issues, bad on black issues, Jewish issues. It don't matter, because if we know what issues need to be dealt with, then we need to deal with them ourselves on the ground before we ever fucking go to electoral politics. And even if you want ranked choice voting or Medicare for all of those things can be done state. Locally, you can pass Medicare for all in your fucking state. Teach your people that shit. If you have a big coalition of people, enough people to make a fucking impact in your city, enough to make the news, do that shit. Meet up with each other. Make it known y'all can get ranked choice voting pass. Make it known that y'all can get ranked choice voting pass first, and then go after Medicare for all, and then go after certain certain bills is gonna knock out these fucking fossil fuel industries. You know what I'm saying? Get these corporations from out of your neighborhood. But you gotta start on the ground. Y'all are not gonna get anything from these politicians besides a middle finger up your ass. I'm telling you, they is not even gonna lick that bitch. They ain't even gonna bite off their nails, bro. Like, I'm telling you.
Okay, I wasn't looking to laugh, but you got me wrong. But one of the things I wanted to address is, especially to Chris, who's in the chat, one of the things about capitalism that people need to realize is that you cannot have a infinite profit model, a model that depends on infinite growth on a finite planet with finite resources. That leads to our extinction. Capitalism basically pushes people to exploit in order to pursue the profit model. Every single time you see a labor law or something like that that's being proposed, that's a barrier or almost like a speed bump for capitalism to try to slow it down. And the thing is that no matter what, capitalism will still keep going. It doesn't matter. It doesn't stop. Whether you slow it down or you put speed bumps, it doesn't stop. And the thing is about socialism, a lot of people misconstrue what socialism actually is. Okay, socialism, according to the definition, is a political and economic theory of social organization, which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole.
Get his ass.
Therefore, if that is what socialism is, That means it is people instead of profits. People ahead of profits. Therefore, every single time there is a company that wants to ship a job overseas, like they did with NAFTA, then guess what? The workers, since they own the means of protection, would say, "Fuck no, we're not moving this place out of this country just so that we can save a buck." Every single time you see pollution that's happening in our oceans, every single time you see air that's been dirtied, every single time you see wars happening overseas, all this is due to capitalism. Every single time, every single black person you're looking at in this chat is here because of capitalism in this country, because they wanted to make a for-profit motive to put people in as slaves so that we can work for free and then make them profits instead. And that's why we've been here for generations, because of that for-profit motive. That's profits over people. So guess what? Yes, we are anti-capitalist. Yes, fuck capitalism, because it is. Look at what is going on in Israel and Palestine right now. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. Look what's going on in the global South. All that is for, and guess what? It's the capitalists that are buying the politicians. And when they buy the politicians put in imperialist policy so that these companies can go over there, extract resources from companies in the global South, so that they can in turn make more profit off of it. And then they also use cheap labor, like Nick said earlier, with child slave labor. I thought we were against that here in this country, by the way. And so what they do is that they use that to create more profits, because guess what? The profit motive doesn't stop. So therefore, capitalism is a cancer in this, not just this nation, but this entire world. And this is one of the reasons why we're anti-capitalist. Jackie's next.
God damn, JV. God damn. Drop the hammer.
I would like to address Chris directly. Chris, earlier you said that you wanted to see more pushback to us. You don't want to see us all just agreeing on things. You are not realizing what you are watching. This is the Roundtable Podcast, where all of us get together and discuss things. We tend to agree, so you're going to see that. If you want to see us talk to people who are challenging us and you see us push back, you need to watch our individual shows, because we all do that. Right now, this is a time for unity. So you're just watching the wrong thing, okay? This is all of us coming together every week to discuss the things that are happening. It's the one time when all of us are together. CJ's not here right now, but mostly it's all of us coming together to discuss things. Each of us has independent content. In that content, we may be talking with people who are wholeheartedly against us and having a conversation. We may talk to people who know things way better than we do and can explain things to us. So you got to watch the whole channel, not just this, okay? Secondly, when someone asks you about, because you keep saying, why won't we talk corruption? Again, you haven't been paying attention, because we address corruption all the time. Right now, we are talking capitalism specifically. And you're making the case that capitalism isn't working due to corruption. No. Capitalism breeds corruption. You have that backwards, okay? Without capitalism, I'm not going to say there is no corruption, because anything can become corrupt, but capitalism breeds corruption, because you cannot be ethical and capitalist. That's what I wanted to say to Chris.
And then we can stop corruption with socialism, because it's at the base. The people own the fucking means. And if we want you gone, you are gone. Like, you get too big, you know what I'm saying? You get too big headed, you're gone. Mm-hmm. Like, that's just that. And, you know, so, I don't know. Take it how you want. Take it how you want. You know,
like, whenever I talk to capitalists, I just like, he said he blamed on corruption, and always interested in like the excuses capitalists make for the system not working. And corruption is a very interesting excuse to make, because I'll read history, I study history. So my question would be, at what point was capitalism corrupted? And be specific. Like, when was capitalism not corrupted? And then at what point did it lead to it becoming corrupted? Because I can tell you, capitalism literally was uplifted. It was the foundation of capitalism was based in the slave trade. This is when capitalism exploded worldwide. Like, so you don't have capitalism without slavery, without the inherent corruption. And then you have people who literally fund the prison industrial complex, and you have different military industrial complexes. You literally have different job programs. So like the entire system itself is fraudulent. And the entire system we know as we know right now is due to reforms that we fought against on capitalism, because according to capitalism before, they had child labor, and these children used to work 12 hours a day in sweatshops. Capitalism is an immoral system, and then you have labor groups led by socialists who fought for labor protection for children. I mean, now it's like common knowledge that children should do that. The same way we fought for 40-hour work weeks. Like all these things that we fought for that we enjoy now is because of socialist movements and socialist workers that used to organize and fought for that. So how is corruption the answer to explain this broken system that crashes every 8 years? And when what we advocate for is for us to actually own the mean of production, because the idea that you have your private property and you benefit off society the way you do, the way that Rockefeller did in the past, and the way Elon Musk benefit for capitalism now, I wholeheartedly reject that system, because this is the production that we should own. Like these are the workers are the reason why they're rich. The workers are the reason why Rockefeller were rich. So in order to be anti-capitalist, in order to be a socialist, you have to reject that ideology as a whole. That will a lot of people don't understand. I reject the ideology that they work to earn their riches. If it wasn't for the structural support of society, if it wasn't for the fact that we have a military that can protect your assets, that there's a police that can protect your assets, that we have roads that you can transport your goods for. So the idea that you worked and you own all your money as a billionaire, I reject. So when, as a socialist, I'll be like, all right, we need to take the means of production back because it's ours. Like it's ours. We put our resources together. We've created a society, so everyone should benefit from the society instead of the top 1% who make like 50% of revenue every year in this country. So how did that make sense? And at what point did corruption ruin this system? Because this is how the system always worked. Income inequality always been a giant problem. This has been a giant problem since the Great Depression. So my question is, like, at what point did corruption ruin this system that you claim worked? Because there's no historical point where you can say that capitalism worked based on my morality system. If your morality system is, okay, it's okay if you had child slaves. It's okay if you had children living in poverty. It's okay if you have people that die in famines. So at what point was this system working for you? Meanwhile, you look at Cuba, you look at all the other countries that increased their literacy rate, increased their life expectancy. So you ask me what other countries are good success models. These are countries that actually take care of their citizens. But I'll pass it. I think I don't know who's next. RJ?
RJ.
Okay, RJ, go ahead.
I think Chris is kind of really defending capitalism in terms of its ideology and not necessarily its effects on workers. You know, this really is, capitalism itself really is more of a top versus bottom issue in terms of its effect, rather than a left versus right issue in terms of its ideology. And so the capitalists, especially those who control the big corporations, those who are the billionaires, they control the prices and the supply of goods while you're the one that's actually producing them. So what we're saying is that for socialists and for communists, we're saying that we want to control the supply and demand for that type of things. So that's what we're kind of advocating for. And back to your corruption case, what you said about how, oh, it's not just capitalism, it's corruption. Well, I agree with Jackie. Capitalism breeds corruption. And I do want to bring up a solution that maybe you could try in your circle. There's a thing called worker co-ops, where if you can have a small business with a couple of your friends pitching some money together, and then when you hire workers, they have a say in your business that you all share. That's another way where you can help your communities thrive and become better. That way everyone can have a say more democratically. So that is a solution that you can try. And a lot of areas, especially those internationally, do have worker co-ops where it is 30% of their economy. Local governments and state governments love them overall because it's a very safe economic model. There's no risk to it. You don't have to worry about a big corporation deciding to shut down a factory in a small town, decimating not only your tax system, but also making it very difficult for even people who live in those communities to have a living wage. So worker co-ops are a great solution to have. in order to not only make things better for yourself, but for your community as well.
Yeah, something I want to say, I want to touch on. Final response to Chris, and then we can move on. Chris is asking about socialist countries, like, because we were talking about socialism. First of all, RJ, the workers' comp that you're, or the workers' co-op that you're talking about, that's known as, if you were to like try to find a government system where that fits in, that would be called socialism. And Chris, you're saying, okay, you just said you're a socialist at heart, but are lately coming to the conclusion that corruption will destroy it as well. Here's what I was just about to say to you, because you just asked, have we seen Venezuela and Cuba? Here's the thing. I don't think a lot of people realize that the reason why Cuba is so poor is because the US, ever since the Cuban Missile Crisis, we have been putting our foot on anybody who wants to work with Cuba. Anybody who comes along and says that they want to do some kind of trade deal, we do our damnedest through the CIA to stop it. We are trying to literally starve them to force them to become capitalist. Okay. What happened in Venezuela? A US led or US backed coup. You have to start realizing that a lot of the times when socialism doesn't work, countries like the US and the UK are directly involved with trying to make them fail. They put sanctions on them, they do a Cold War, or they just do an outright war, or they just come in and liberate them. So we cannot, embargo does not cover for Fidel's corruption. Okay, I said earlier, you cannot, there's no such thing as a non-corrupt system. That's why there are a lot of people who are anarchists.
Yeah, you seem like you
because
don't
they think
understand
any
what like.
system can be corrupt, because it's true.
It seems like sorry, Jackie. I'll pass it right back to you. But it seems like you don't know what socialism is. So I don't know we should spend that much more time because he like repeating just government stuff. It's about like give me an argument for why we shouldn't own the means of production. Like this is this is what you should be arguing. Like you bringing up the other countries it doesn't mean anything. You're wasting my time now. Sorry, Jackie. I want you to continue, but I want to bring that. Like what's the argument for us? What's the argument against us owning the means of production? That's what you should be arguing against. Sorry, go ahead, Jackie.
That shit don't make no sense to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like socialism is work. Okay, look at it this way: Jeff Bezos is a billionaire on his way to becoming a trillionaire. Why? Because of capitalism. In a socialist system, you would have no billionaire, but you would have a lot of people who are making a really good living working in Amazon because the workers would own the means of production. It would be a thriving economy for everyone, not just one person. That's socialism. Okay? And the reason why it hasn't succeeded throughout the recent history is mainly because of US imperialism. Because we don't want it to. So we do what we can to stop it. That's what I'm telling you.
Anyone had that clip with
I'm
that
gonna kick
CIA
you back
guy
to
literally
Chris.
admitting that? There was a CIA guy that literally said we had a vested interest. He's a whistleblower, said we had a vested interest in mailing a socialist country because people could not see an example alternative of capitalism. I don't want to take too much time on that, but I just want to bring that up. I'll probably show that up later. But I'll pass it to JB here.
Okay. So we're reaching the end, close to the end of our program. So I would like to get final thoughts from everyone. Rome, I would like to get your final thoughts first. So is there anything coming up, any different types of activism and activities you'll be doing? I know you're supposed to be going to Ohio. Is it Ohio soon?
Yep. I'm supposed to be going to Ohio next, right after this. I got a giveaway going on, 2 days, the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to do a giveaway here. Then I'm on the plane to Toledo, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
I'm halfway fundraising for that. I need to get on my shit about that, but I've been very busy down here somewhat. That event is for children, and we're going to be giving away, toddler clothes, baby clothes, diapers, wipes, helping out, the poor parents down there because 19% of Lucas County lives in poverty. So
Yeah.
so we're not going to lift them out of poverty or anything, but we're going to, you know, plant roots
Mm-hmm.
of our communist agenda in Ohio and make sure that we can get people to, you know, feel good of being open about their communism or their socialism, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
openly want to take care of each other because, like I said, we all we got, and we got to get this rolling, man, because it's only so much time that we have left to actually, you know, do this. Like, man, it's so much against us right now, and who knows when they're gonna attack America ass, you know what I'm saying? Who knows when it's our turn to throw
Mm-hmm.
those fucking bombs and those nukes. So let's get right in America and let's at least try to stop this government and hit them where it hurts their pockets before they get all of us killed.
Okay. Thank you, Rome. And please make sure to follow Rome on social media. And anytime you see any of his events, please make sure to share everywhere on your social media. Talk to your family, your friends, because there may be people who we don't know that may need assistance. So we're going to bring it over to RJ. RJ, what are your final thoughts after having this conversation?
Yeah, I think we had a great discussion today, many different topics. We talked about really the mayor race in New York. We talked about Andrew Yang with his bad comments about BDS, as well as the interactions that's happening right now in Israel. And we talked about capitalism as well. I think all these discussions, and a lot of us bring a lot of different perspectives to the table. And I really like how we also bring solutions to our problems as well. That way we can keep people entertained about really the future in general and what it could hold. For my show tomorrow, I won't be live, but I will have content for you same time, so don't worry about it. It's 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow. I have a special friend, Millennial Explaining. We'll be talking about really living wage as well as a federal jobs program, and I'll also be releasing another video talking with Jason Kishnev. We were discussing anti-imperialism. We talked about what happened in Bolivia, Venezuela, as well as what's happening in Israel right now. So you should check that out tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, great. Jackie, what's on the docket for you, and what are your final thoughts for this evening?
What's coming up for me is a couple of things today on the podcast side on Anchor. My podcast that I did with my interview that I did with Lee Camp just hit. And on Saturday, I'm going to be releasing the video on YouTube. On Monday, Nerdolitics with my co-host Meg. We're going to be continuing our road to Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And that week we are going to be on Captain America: Civil War, one of my favorites. Well, I mean, they're all my favorites. Okay, whatever. Anyway, and that's going to be 2 p.m. Pacific on Monday, 2 to 4 on here on our Twitch. And that's pretty much it for me for right now. More stuff coming down the pipe.
All right, cool. Nick, please tell us, what do you have planned for us? I know you got some really good stuff coming up. Please let us know.
So, yeah, man, I just appreciate for everyone watching and supporting For Hampton Leftists. I'm in conversation with a lot of great guests that come down the pipeline. I don't want to announce a lot of things right now, but just know we got a lot of good things coming up, and we're going to expand and grow. And I'm not talking about just standard podcast stuff. I mean, I'm talking about hitting the road, doing events, helping boosting people's mutual aid events, like our boosting Anthony Clark. These are the kind of things that we want to do at Fred Hampton Leftist. So if you enjoy our show, if you want to see a Black Leftist network, unlike we haven't seen in the left right now, because there's a lot of shows. But what other show do you know right now? We have Black leftist activists that are speaking from a perspective from a person of color, and we are willing to be on the street, boosting mutual aid events, showing what it's actually like on the ground. Because that's what I want to do as this channel grow, and that's my plan. And once again, what Rome is doing is amazing. What JB's doing amazing. RJ, Jackie, Compton doing, it's all great stuff. And I'm looking at Palestine protests, and as we grow, I mean, I want to be at those protests and covering it live. Once we get once we're able to get equipment And once we're able to meet up and have a situation where we can actually come together as a team and cover these protests, can you guys imagine that? So, but we got to grow first to get that. So that's why we ask for support for our Patreon. Fred Hampton Leftists. I put in the chat earlier. If you have it, please support it because these are the kind of things we talked about. And I'll talk to Ron on the phone about the kind of things we want to do in the future. I mean, this podcast right now is really fun, but we got a lot of dreams of grandeur that we talk about, and I want to see expand. And final thoughts, I mean, stand with Palestine. And the message I always want to say is healthy. It's very, very healthy to hate your oppressors. And that's the message that we want to send here. Never apologize. Don't let them gaslight, pretending that Palestine don't have a reason to defend themselves. That's bullshit. Palestine have a reason to defend themselves the same way we have the right to defend ourselves against our fascist police state. It's the same concept. And this is the mindset of the left, and this is the mindset you get from the channel. So hit the bell, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content.
All right. Thank you so much. And just my final thoughts for this evening. You know, we cover a lot of different topics here on the Fred Hampton Leftist, but one of the things is clear. It's always about the people. And the thing is that when it comes to different systems that we are seeing, and we see how, you know, capitalism breeds corruption, is a catalyst for corruption. This is one of the reasons why we're anti-capitalist. Also, one of the reasons why we are doing this is because we want people to know that they deserve better. And they deserve better just by them being a human being. And the things that we are making demands for and the things that we are educating about and pushing for are really just things that people should have already had. And these are things that dignify a person. So therefore, this is why we stand with the people of Palestine. This is why we stand with the people of Bolivia. And this is why we stand for the people, with the people, you know, and many other different countries.
And with Colombia as well.
And Colombia and all the other hundreds of countries that are either subject to or have been subject to colonial occupation, either by this country or other Western nations abroad. So one of the things that we try to do is try to make sure that we give a voice to the voiceless as well. I would like to thank you all for joining us today. Please also be sure to follow us on Patreon. And also on the docket, will be having a very special guest this Sunday. I will be having Councilwoman Kashama Swan from Seattle. She'll be with us on the Sunday live show at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And I would just like to thank all my Fred Hampton co-hosts. And you guys are amazing. And thank you so much for donating for our live show today. You guys are what keep us going. And we are humbled by this. And we thank you so much. And this is going to be the end for us.